What is going on, everybody? I am back today to talk about a movie that was released in theaters a little while ago, but it didn't stay in theaters for very long. And I saw the trailer for this movie and was really interested to see it, but unfortunately I missed it while it was in the theaters. And so it's available on VOD right now for rental, and I decided I wanted to check it out. And the movie I'm going to be discussing with you today is We Grown Now. We Grown Now is directed by Minhal Baig. Two young boys experience the joys and hardships of growing up in the Cabrini Green public housing complex in 1992 Chicago. So when I saw the trailers for this movie, I was really excited to check it out. Didn't really know much about the movie other than that it was involving Cabrini Green. And this movie was beautiful. It was really well made, had some incredible performances, and I think that it has some flaws in its pacing, and I think some of the dramatic moments don't necessarily land as hard as other ones. But despite some of the flaws I had with this film, I'm really surprised that it's not being talked about more. And I'll talk about it more when I break the film down for you. So at the beginning of the film, we are introduced to two young kids, Malik and Eric, that are living in the Cabrini Green housing developments in Chicago in the 90s. And we get Malik giving this voiceover monologue at the beginning of the movie. We jump just right into both of their lives. We see them interacting with their families. We spend a lot more time with Malik's family than we do with Eric's family. We learn a little bit about what brought them here, what day-to-day life is like, what life is like at their school, and a lot of the difficulties that they face. Despite living in this difficult situation, these are children and they're kids wanting to live their lives and experience their lives and experience joy. And so the entirety of the film is looking at this really difficult living situation where they're being treated poorly by the police and their house is getting raided randomly in the middle of the night. All these little things happening to them when they're just trying to enjoy their childhoods. So as I said, I thought this movie was really beautiful, and I think that it's an incredibly poignant message. And obviously this is based on a real place and a real thing. When I think about representation of like Cabrini Green in film recently, I think about the way that it's talked about in like the Candyman reboot. But to bring it forth in such a realistic way to kind of show audiences what living in that situation was like, they really capture the essence of like, these are just people living their day-to-day lives who have these unfortunate circumstances brought on them because of the area that they live in and because of the way police force treat people that live here, and obviously the racism that exists in that area as well. And it was just a very hard-hitting message. For starters, the first thing I want to talk about is the performances in this movie. The two young actors in this film do a phenomenal job. There's a lot of sequences where they're sitting together and they just have conversations. There's these beautiful scenes of them just kind of looking at the world through this very dream-like lens. And there's this fantastical realism that exists in the movie, contrasted with the harsh reality that they actually live in. And there's this kind of hope to get out and be somewhere else, but also this understanding of that at this point in time, that this is your home. And I think the way that it's depicted is really beautiful, and these two actors just do a phenomenal job, especially for being so young. The actors that play the parents in this movie also do a phenomenal job. I feel like they create these very intimate family dynamics that make it really easy to watch because they're all so incredibly believable, and the chemistry that they have with one another feels very real and raw and emotional. My favorite part of this film is the cinematography. This is honestly some of the most gorgeous cinematography that I've seen in a movie all year long. They take some risk and they do some very unique filmmaking techniques that kind of take a surreal approach, and that I didn't really expect in this movie. I felt like it was going to be mostly just a very grounded and realistic portrayal of this family life. But there's these really beautiful sequences with no dialogue where you're just staring at this really gorgeous imagery that is paralleling the themes that the director wants to get across in the movie. And I was completely and totally immersed in the film through the entire runtime because of the gorgeous film presentation. There's a scene in particular where the two young boys go to the Chicago Art Institute, And there's a scene where they're like running through the halls and like everyone else in the art institute is completely frozen. And it's just a really beautiful sequence that, like I said, kind of dives into that fantastical realism element that I was discussing. And I really liked that a lot. As I said, this movie dives into the day-to-day life of these characters, and a lot of it is just very simple snapshots and portraits of what it was like to live in this area. And there's obviously some moments of like really intense drama that showcase like the harsh realities. Like I said, police knocking on your door in the middle of the night saying that they think there could be drugs in your house, even though you've never had a history of drug problems, and they just kind of barge in because of where you live. There's an entire plot arc about one of the young kids being killed in the area, and like the parents just all being horrified of their kids being out on their own and getting home safely. The community forcing all these young 6 and 7 year old kids to get ID cards. Like, there are a ton of really intense moments in this movie, contrasted in with just snapshot of life moments. And I think the director, for the most part, handles it in a way that it's really easy to digest and that it's really emotionally moving. But I will say one of my problems with this movie is some of the emotional beats feel a little bit less authentic than others. There's some of it that come across as like a made for TV movie and less of like a real powerful authentic drama. And like I said, the performances are all really good. It's just the way certain sequences are framed in contrast to other sequences in the movie that like I would get pulled out for little 5 to 10 minute increments and then thrown right back in when something incredible would happen. And the cinematography really does a nice job keeping it feeling tonally the same. But like I said, there's just a couple of sequences in the movie that just feel jarring and out of place in comparison to other sequences, which made the movie less impactful as a whole for me. But I still think what the director is trying to say here and trying to showcase is so incredibly beautiful that it's really easy for me to excuse any of those minimal flaws. And I really hope that more people talk about this movie because I think it's incredibly beautiful. I think there's a really solid artistic vision here, and We Grown Now is totally and completely worth your time. So have you seen We Grown Now? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Leave me a comment down below. Let me know what you thought. I thought this movie was beautiful. Despite some of the problems I had with the movie, I still think it is 100% worth your watch. As always, if you can like the video and subscribe to the channel, it helps me out a lot and lets me know the type of content you're looking for. I'm always putting out new material and look forward to getting more out for you in the near future. And as always, everyone, thank you so much for watching and have a great rest of your day.